We explored three big factors yesterday that could define Knicks Pistons. We have three more for you. Can the Knicks take advantage of Detroit in transition? And what's going to happen with Mikal Bridges? Can he step up this series? We're going to get into all that and so much more on this episode of the Locked On Knicks podcast.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? You are Locked On Knicks. I'm Gavin, Schall, your Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. He's Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of the Strictly the Greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. You can check them out on all forms of social media at thestrick.land. If you didn't know, we've said it a few times, so you should. But this is Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of course, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 whole days a week, sometimes 6 or 7. This is going to be one of those weeks. And be sure to join thousands of other fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform, the best insight on your favorite team. Make sure you never miss an episode. But if you're a real sicko, that's not enough for you. Well, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introduced in Locked On Knicks daily newsletter, the one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. We've hinted at it, but on today's show, we're discussing 3 more key factors that could define the Knicks' chances against the Detroit Pistons. How do you defend Detroit, one of the best transition teams in the NBA? Can the Knicks get out in transition themselves? This is one of my biggest questions. This would have been my fourth if I got to 4. Can Mikal Bridges get some on-ball reps? Can you take advantage of the fact that you probably have 4 of the 5 best players in the series? And did Landry Shamet earn a spot in the rotation? How important will shooting be to the Knicks' chances? Alex Wolfe, floor is yours, buddy. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, let's talk about the transition one. This one was the one that when I was looking for like an overall thing that the Knicks should probably be looking to defend and possibly something that they can try to exploit themselves. Transition was one of the first things that came up as I was looking through the numbers that I was like, oh, this looks pretty good in the Knicks' favor. So the Pistons 5th this year in transition frequency, which would track. It's a young team. I looked up, what was it? I think there's a website called NBAage.com, something like that, that'll show you the average age of every team in the NBA, but also like a weighted average for the players that actually get minutes. And the Pistons are on average, like their rotation players are about 2 years younger than the Knicks. So like they're gonna get out and run. This is a young team. They're gonna want to, push in transition and get out there. And again, they do it about a fifth of the time, 20.3% of their possessions, which is good for 5th in the NBA per NBA stats. But they're only tied for 13th in points per possession in transition at 1.14. So that bodes kind of well for the Knicks, right? It's something that they're going to want to do a lot, but that if the Knicks play their cards right, like the Pistons are just above average in terms of what they produce in transition. And honestly, I think that the tie for 13th was like a 4 or 5 way tie or something like that. So they're basically middle of the pack in the NBA in that. But the good thing for the Knicks is, or sort of, they're 12th in the NBA in points per possession allowed in transition at 1.13. So so slightly less than what the Pistons produce. But I think the thing that the Knicks should do here is try to fight fire with fire. The Pistons rank tied for 5th in transition points per possession allowed at 1.09. So they're good at defending in transition. Again, probably those young legs, the fact that they're, just they hustled the crap out of every game. I mean, we saw that in every single time they played the Knicks. Like they're gonna run back. They're not gonna let you get any free buckets on the other end. They're trying to bring Detroit basketball back and all that stuff. So that tracks that they're one of the better teams against transition. But the Knicks quietly were actually 2nd in the NBA in scoring efficiency in transition this year, 2nd in the NBA with 1.18 points per possession in transition. The only problem here is that sort of reverse of Detroit, where Detroit is like high in frequency and towards average in efficiency. The Knicks are towards average in frequency and really elite at actually finishing once they do it. They're 14th in the NBA in transition frequency at 18.3% of their possessions. So it doesn't seem like a huge number, but those couple extra possessions, that comes in handy. So like if you're just looking at it on a per 100 possession, basis, that's 18 possessions for the Knicks versus 20 for the Pistons. That's potentially, 2 extra buckets that matters in the playoffs. So this is like anecdotal at best. I also, when I wrote that earlier, I was like, that's a great name for a podcast. I should bank that.
That is good.
Anecdotal at
That is
best.
good. Yeah.
But they tend to play a lot better when, at least to my eye, when the Knicks prioritize transition. That allows them to get out early in games. They have really talented transition players that are great at finishing in transition, whether it's OG Anunoby, whether it's Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart. Certainly, we know the book on him. I mean, he's a great transition finisher. Not even giving ups to Jalen Brunson or Karl Anthony Towns, who have both also managed to put together some great transition possessions this year. A lot of guys that are willing passers in transition. I mean, just all in all, it's something that the Knicks should lean into. Obviously, fresh legs are going to play part of that, and hopefully the week off leading into the playoffs, and then the extra days off in between games that come baked into the playoffs will help them in that regard. But I think if they can kind of fight fire with fire and get out in transition against Detroit, it could work out really well for them.
Yeah, and I think like I think of two players in this in terms of not allowing Detroit to get out in transition. I look to Jalen Brunson, right? The Knicks on the season are 5th in the NBA in taking care of the basketball, only committing 13.3 turnovers per game. Oklahoma City and Boston are in their own universe, and maybe that's why they're the two best teams in the league. But then the Knicks are essentially they're 0.1 away from being tied with Indiana, tied with Cleveland. So the Knicks, outside the two special teams, they're probably going to play for the championship, and none of this really matters. Outside of them, the Knicks are about as good as anyone at protecting the basketball, and that all starts with Jalen Brunson, who's incredible capacity to handle the ball all the time and create an immense amount of offense. And literally, like, I think at the time he got hurt, like having the ball in his hands for the most minutes per game of any player, and he doesn't turn the ball over. And that is the one advantage to Tom Thibodeau running a somewhat simple offense. That I spent all of last podcast like saying like no ISO ball, no ISO ball. The brilliance of Jalen Brunson ISO ball is that he is hyper efficient and he does not give the ball to the other team. You start letting other guys handle the basketball, specifically Karl Anthony Towns, you are going to have more turnovers. So that it is an excellent point in contrast to what I was arguing, though I was saying specifically at the end of games, they don't want to just be Jalen. It is a case for saying like, hey, you know what, buddy? Jalen's pretty good at this. Just go let him cook. On the other side of the basketball, I look to OG Anunoby. And I wonder what version of OG Anunoby we're going to get. And this kind of goes back to the Cade Cunningham conversation, where if OG Anunoby is on the ball and he's guarding Cade Cunningham, that's great because Cade Cunningham is I would say undoubtedly going to be less efficient than he would be with anyone else guarding him. But the trade-off is you are not getting playmaking OG where he can play in passing lanes. And I think the thing that OG is better at than probably anyone, maybe this side of Kawhi Leonard I've ever seen, which is like being on his guy, but seeing someone drive towards the nail and peel off and just reach out with that long arm. And our friend Benji Ritholtz says it's almost like he fences, like he just juts a hand right in, rips the basketball away because he's such incredibly strong hands. If he gets to play off the ball, you're going to see some of that. You're going to see some rotating over and shot blocking that gets the Knicks out in transition. Why are the Knicks so efficient in transition? It's because so many of those plays, and with OG Anunoby dunks, or especially early in the season, Josh Hart layups, and Hart is the one other guy, Alex, I'm interested in. I'm curious your perspective on him because we've been quite negative on Hart lately. He, early in the year, was extraordinarily good at the rim, something like 77% at the rim. A lot of that came in transition, fighting through bodies and finishing. We've seen so much less of that post All-Star break where he had that very complicated term for runner's knee. If we get a healthy Josh Hart with a week off and an extra game off, I think that could really help the Knicks in transition as well, and his ability to just grab a rebound and go.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to, I feel like, again, this is anecdotal. I didn't have the time or the desire to go back and look like, what if the Knicks done on, more days rest and whatever this year? Although I do think there are some stats for that on Basketball Reference that I probably could have checked out. But, anecdotally, I feel like on days when they come in, when they've had more rest, they do tend to come out with that little extra spring in their step, the ability to get out and transition more. So maybe it's going to be as simple as, having something to play for again, not just kind of being locked into the 3 seed for a month and kind of coasting by on that. And also, kind of managing injuries on and off where different guys were on versus off in various games. And, it led to not full strength versions of this team at any given time, which changes how you play, whatever. Maybe that's all it takes to get them back out in transition. But I agree. I think that I think heart is a huge part of it. I mean, when he's at his best, I mean, he's a coast to coast, like take it all the way from getting the rebound on one end, by the restricted area on one end of the floor to sprinting it all the way down the floor, finishing, sometimes getting a foul called on him as well, or a foul called, against him, to get an and one in transition, because he's just so good at finishing with that full head of steam and like managing his momentum to, not overshoot it, but, do just right to control his body and get that ball in there. If we see more of that, Josh Hart, it won't matter if he, doesn't shoot well. And if he shoots more like the 2 years ago version of Josh Hart in the playoffs versus the last year version of Josh Hart in the playoffs, or I guess it'll matter to some degree, depending on how far you get in the playoffs, but like it mitigates it a lot if he's giving you that in transition and letting you get free points that way. Because, I think that the Knicks have the talent, especially if they can come up with a creative way to throw doubles at Cade Cunningham and make him pass the ball ways that he doesn't want to, that don't just end in the lap of a wide open Malik Beasley or a wide open, Tim Hardaway or whatever, like a wide open shooter. I think that could potentially work out really well for them, and, give them transition opportunities that they can get the ball out of Cade's hands in smart ways, use smart doubles, and be anticipatory of where he's going to look to throw the ball. And that this might be where Tibbs can shine a little bit. Like this is the man who claims to watch tape, 5 times for every game or whatever, and yells at us, us content folks for not doing that. That's
peons,
we're watching
peons. That's what he says.
Us peons, exactly. That's where watching the tape a million times over pays off. Like you start to notice those trends. You start to notice, hey, every time the Cade drives, every time he drove on Mikal Bridges, blah, 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 he looked to the left or whatever. He looks for a pass over the left corner. So let's like try to funnel him to the right and then force him into a bad pass or something like that. I don't know what Tibbs is going to come up with, but this is his opportunity to potentially come out dominant in the first game or two. And of course, we've seen that of all the coaches in the NBA, he's had a really, really great series against JB Bickerstaff before, and absolutely dominated that series from a coaching perspective. So if there's ever any time for it to happen, now would probably be it for the Knicks to come out and just fully out strategize and, out hustle these guys early on in this series.
Yeah, it's a great call. And one area I think that some strategizing will be needed will be how do you get the best out of Mikal Bridges in the playoffs? Because it does not happen consistently for the New York Knicks this year. We're going to talk about that in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we want to let you know about our friends over at Open Phone. And if you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When was the last time you had a service emergency? If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications all through an app on your phone or computer. And it's great. You don't have to carry 2 phones. With Open Phone, you can manage business calls and text from one app, whether you're at your desk or on the go. And my favorite feature, the shared inbox. Your team can jump into any conversation without missing a beat. OpenPhone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you're switching from another service, OpenPhone will even port your existing numbers over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
We also want to tell you about our friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? I did because I have one and I've used it as an Xbox, but maybe you didn't. So turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV. Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included. If you're ready to play, dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports, College Football 25. My God, it's good to have that game back. To Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple. It's all on your Fire TV. I also love that they offer endless entertainment with 4K streaming. Watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, Max, and more. I've never had a Fire TV in my life, and I am living better than I ever have. I love being able to bounce between different apps. I can watch Succession on HBO, and then I can go over and mix in a little Daredevil on Disney Plus when I want something different. I can head over to Prime and watch some Invincible. It is all good stuff. So head to Amazon.com. So it's Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, we are back here on Locked On Knicks. One of the big things for the Knicks this season is getting the most out of Mikal Bridges. Alex, I don't know if you heard, they gave up a lot of draft picks to go and get him. I see Nets fans talking about it constantly on my timeline, and it boils my blood. So I'm hoping Mikal shuts everyone up with a great series. What are your thoughts on Mikal as we head into the series?
I think my big thing is, will the Knicks still trust him, and will Tibbs still trust him with secondary playmaking? Maybe even as much as Josh Hart, who I think will rightfully get a lot of chances to sort of run the show when the ball's not in Jalen Brunson's hands. But quick little stat, and this is maybe, I don't know, maybe overly simplistic, but I don't care. It fits my narrative. 16 games, Mikal Bridges notched 6 or more assists this season. The Knicks record in those games was 11-5. So for those of you keeping score at home, that would be more than enough, or more than a good enough win percentage to win a playoff series. So 11-5, 16 games where he gets 6 or more assists. I think I've been hard on the idea of Mikal playmaking. I think that early on when the Knicks were trying it this season, I was kind of like, what the hell's the point? It just didn't seem like it was going anywhere. And, it seemed like they hadn't tried it so much, but to give them credit for one thing, and I guess it took a Jalen Brunson injury to really lean into it in earnest and actually like turn it into something more than a sideshow that they were using, a few plays a game to limited effect. But, down the stretch of the season, when Brunson was out, I thought that was some of their better work was when Mikal would bring the ball down. That was how he kind of found his way from mid-range again. He was doing really good at getting all the way to the rim at times that way, or at least giving the impression of getting all the way to the rim and then kicking out to shooters. We saw his assist numbers overall go up. He had over 5 assists per game down the stretch after Brunson got hurt. So from like that first game that Brunson got hurt all the way through the end of the season, including when Brunson came back, he averaged over 5 assists per game. But also more importantly, I think once he started having the ball in his hands more, we saw his offense get better. Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that when a guy goes from being relatively uninvolved, and like we've talked about it a bunch on the show, but like he's not a guy that's going to sit there and like, do the like clap, 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 like hands out, like give me the ball motion. He's just not that type of player. He needs like a little more involvement by design to start getting him going on offense. I don't think it's a coincidence that when he started handling the ball more, suddenly he was shooting 54% overall, 37.5% from 3 on a lot of attempts per game, 92.3% from the free throw line in the final 19 games of the season, not counting the final game because he played 6 seconds of that one. So I took that one out of the data set there. Mm-hmm. But, he got to handle the ball more, got to be more involved in the offense. And I think that's kind of the key to making sure that he can be a playoff force this year and someone the Knicks can really rely on, because I think that also we see he's not immune to what happens to some players, which is if you could tell that their body language isn't super great on offense and that you could tell that they're kind of looking like they're not feeling involved on offense, suddenly I think the defense slips a little bit too. So keeping him involved on one end could help keep him involved on both ends, I think, and keep him motivated to just be his best version of himself on this team. So hopefully they make a concerted effort to get him involved in the offense and get him handling the ball more.
Yeah, look, we've talked about it when Brunson came back. I hope they have him screen for Jalen a good amount. It's going to be interesting, right? Because the main screening partner for Jalen Brunson will likely be whoever Tim Hardaway Jr. is guarding, or whoever Jalen Duren is guarding. Like those are the two guys. Maybe you target Tobias Harris a little bit. Like Brunson's definitely going to have his success, maybe you want to target Cade Cunningham to try and tire him out a little bit. You just don't want to start Thompson on Jalen Brunson. Anyone else, it feels like Jalen should have a pretty good chance to go at. So you could run screens with a multitude of guys to that point. And we've seen Mikal be really good at that, like his ability to just pop out and operate as a 4-on-3 playmaker, both in a short roll scenario, but also as a primary ball handler. You could have Brunson, maybe not if Asar's on him, but if the guard's on him, you could have Brunson screen for him. You could have Hart screen for him, like if Duran's on him, right? You are trying to attack. You're trying to have Mikal going downhill against a drop big. And we've also seen Mikal, like, I think, develop a really nice chemistry in the pick and roll with Karl Anthony Towns, with his ability to just like hang and drop a pass over the top to Towns for a dunk. Like Towns got a roll dunk the other day. It might have even been the Detroit game. It might have been the Cleveland game. I can't quite remember. Point is, like, we haven't been seeing a ton of that lately from Brunson in Town. So why not run it with Mikal? Him and Mitch have been really effective where Mitch has been diving, and either Mikal hits him on a lob because Mikal, unlike Jalen, can actually see that pass over his defender if he's tall enough. Or if two stay with Mitch, or like someone crashes down to bump Mitch, Mikal's good enough to spray it to the corner. Like, I think he's been making, to your point, like a lot of simple, effective reads. And to that point, like the last Pistons game, he had 7 assists earlier this year, 15-7, three assists, 3 steals against the Pistons, 20 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 27 in that third game against Detroit where Cade was cooking him, but Mikal was actually going right back at him, and he went 6 for 8 from 3 in that game. Like he's been quite effective against this team. And I think how the Knicks best press their talent advantage is by, again, like not all Jalen Brunson all the time. Take advantage of the fact that you have scorers up and down the lineup, diversify. And to me, Mikal is like him and OG are the two faces of that message.
Yeah, and the good thing too is that Detroit, for as much as they want to, recapture the glory days of hard-nosed Pistons basketball or whatever, they're not exactly peppered with like crazy good defenders up and down the roster either. At least not like individual defenders. I know that
as
like
a team, they're really good, but
yeah, as a team, they're great, but like they have exploitable single guys that you can go after, like a Tim Hardaway Jr., who Knicks fans are more than familiar with, or a Malik Beasley who has his moments but isn't necessarily like a world beater on defense. And like those guys are guys that they're going to have to have out there for spacing, because otherwise they're going to be like, okay, we're going to throw Ron Holland out there or something like that, who can't really shoot yet, and struggles with many aspects of the game, which makes sense. He's a rookie, but like they're going to have to make sort of a choice in that regard. And hopefully the Knicks can take advantage of the fact that like, hey, if they're going to have like their shooters out there, that's times when you could take advantage of the wings, and go after a Tim Hardaway Jr., go after a Malik Beasley. If you can get that mismatch with a Mikal or even with an OG, who, this isn't an OG segment, but that's another guy that, I think they should focus on feeding and taking advantage of what he can do best, because he has the chance to get some good mismatches here. And even like a Tobias Harris or something, who I know is having like sort of a resurgent year, he's attackable, I think, especially in the playoffs. I mean, we saw it last year. He was bad last year. he was bad and was definitely because of, the role that he played on that Sixers team last year and what they needed out of him versus what they got. He was a big part of the Knicks winning that series last year against the Sixers. So there are guys, mostly the older guys, that are less talented on defense, but could potentially shoot you out of, they could shoot the Knicks out of this game if they make too many. The Knicks need to make sure to take advantage of them on the other end. And that's going to involve feeding the wings and getting those guys opportunities. And I think Mikal Bridges is a prime example of that, especially if Mikal starts bringing the ball down, they throw one of their, primo defenders like Oscar Thompson on him for a possession or two, then that gives you the opportunity to find Jalen Brunson without that defender on him too, which is a blessing. So as much as they can take advantage of that, they definitely should. But another thing they should take advantage of doing is just taking advantage of the fact that Landry Shamet has been one of the best 3-point shooters. I can't verify this, but in the history of basketball over the last month or so, don't fact check me on that, but he has been fantastic shooting the ball, and hopefully will get a roll. And that's what we're going to talk about to close this episode out in just a moment. But first, I want to let you know about Skims. And when I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always had issues with underwear, whether it's fit, comfort, just finding the right style for me. Skims changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. Let me tell you that the stretch 3-inch boxer brief has been my favorite. I thought I would be a 5-inch boxer brief guy. That's what I've traditionally worn. My traditional, do you still call it an inseam with boxers, whatever? That's been my traditional boxer length. But I went with the 3-inch to try something new. And I find it rides up way less. Like the material is really comfy, but it doesn't feel like it's like riding too high, like it's some tighty whities or something. I've very much been enjoying them. I've played basketball in them, like all kinds of different sports, whatever, gone hiking. They're nice, they're comfortable, they're breathable, they feel really good. Honestly, it makes me feel a lot better when I'm doing active stuff to have nice, stretchy, active approved boxer briefs on me. So definitely check out the 3-inch. Maybe you'll be surprised like me. So shop Skims men's at skims.com/lockedonnba and Skims stores, including their flagship store on Fifth Ave in New York, if you happen to be in Manhattan, and let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. All right, we're back in to finish up these what it will now be 6 things in total. Or of course, if you didn't listen yesterday, check out Gavin's 3 things to look for in this series, and this is the end of my 3 things to look for in this series. Then to do a little early promoting, we're gonna do another Locked On Pistons crossover and probably examine that from a few different angles as well. And then maybe bring on another guest and have some more episodes or another episode or more episodes before the game tips off on Saturday. Lots more to talk about. So we're gonna have all kinds of stuff for your feed this week. But for now, let me get into my final thing to look out for here. And it's just I've been pounding this drum for months. It feels like forever. So I'm just gonna, I couldn't get through 3 things I'm looking for without dropping Landry Shamet. Will he get his due? Did he do enough to earn his playoff rotation spot? I hope that he did. He shot 42.5% from 3 on over 4 attempts post All-Star break. Just bonkers shooting from him. Cleaning the glass. This shocked me, honestly. I was looking just to see if I could find a little something to be like, oh, he's definitely a positive. Oh, well, according to Cleaning the Glass, he is really a positive. Cleaning the Glass has him tied with Cat for the team lead in points per 100 possessions differential on the team in his 703 minutes that he played this year at a +7, which almost seems too crazy. Honestly, I gotta maybe look into that one a little more, but it's a little more modest on Basketball Reference, but they still have him as via their method, where I think their on-off is calculated a little differently.
Cleaning the glass takes out garbage time, so that could be part of it.
That might be it. Oh yeah, I guess that would be helpful for Shamet.
Which is more reliable. So maybe that's the right one.
Maybe that's the difference there. So, but either way, from Basketball Reference, which I don't think takes out garbage time, he's still at a +2.7 in offensive rating or offensive versus defensive rating when he's on the floor. He was also, I think, really good from mid range as well. He didn't have to go to the shot that often, but the mid range shot is always an important shot in the playoffs. It's the one that's, you know, that everybody's okay with giving up, but if you can make them consistently, it can be a backbreaker. I mean, we've seen that with Jalen Brunson over these last couple of years. That's one of his bread and butter shots, and that's part of what allows him to be as good as he is in the playoffs, is the fact that he can make it from mid-range when he needs to. Hopefully, that's also something that they see a lot out of with Mikal Bridges if needed, because he's a sniper from that area. OG Anunoby also has a pretty good mid-range shot when he needs it, but Landry Shamet also has a nice mid-range shot. He shot 56% on short mid-range shots, which was 97th percentile among wings per Cleaning the Glass, and 50% overall for mid-range, which is 89th percentile per Cleaning the Glass among wings. Relatively small sample size. I think he had like less than 50 overall attempts from mid, and on that short mid-range number, it was like 26 attempts, but still, it's something. I mean, considering the amount of playing time that he had and the fact that most of his existence is just finding his way around the perimeter and shooting movement threes, I think that he's not going to necessarily have to go to that a ton, but the fact that he has it in his bag, always useful in the playoffs, in my opinion. I think he's done enough just from an offensive perspective alone to earn this spot and get himself at least 5 to 10 minutes a game where you try to let him come in there, potentially swing a playoff game. I mean, I really do think genuinely that if you put him out there and he hits like 3 threes in a row, that might be enough to like break an opponent's back in a third quarter and give you that kind of momentum to ride through the end of the game with, or whatever. I think that he has done it. I think he's done enough to earn this. I think that he scores efficiently in the two areas where you'd most likely need him, although he's also shown an okay ability, like an okay instinct on cuts this year too, which, at least he has that in his mind at any given time, because often we see in the playoffs, a well-timed backdoor cut or whatever for a layup can also be a potential backbreaker. But I think I'd like to see him definitely get some time in the playoffs, and I think he's done enough to earn it down the stretch. And hopefully Tibbs is willing to stay open-minded enough to probably go to a 9-man rotation to make it happen. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see in the first game.
Yeah, I mentioned the stat last show, but to build on your I think it was post All-Star break point, the last 11 games, 12 points per game, 48.5% from three on 6.5 attempts per game. So obviously that last game against the Nets helped, but he's been cooking for a while now. The confidence is just different. Like he's getting rebounds, taking up the court and dribbling into threes, which he was absolutely not doing early in the year. To your point of mid-range, like we're seeing like a pump fake, one dribble, like elbow jumper that looks automatic right now. Like he just looks like a dirty scorer. I mentioned it on a previous pod, but I remember his rookie year on the Sixers, like he was talked about. He was not as good of a player, to be clear, but he was talked about in almost a similar way to how Jared McCain was discussed this year. We're like, wow, he was this like incredibly prized rookie because he came into the NBA so league ready, so confident, and he just hadn't really ever gotten better since then. But like these last couple or 10 plus games now, like he has been really, really good. I think I still have concerns about him defensively if you were to like play him like closing minutes ever, which I know isn't really what you're implying, but we saw like Malik Beasley go at him. Like I think Detroit is a team like just full of dogs, and like if they smell blood in the water, they're now making piranha analogy. Multiple animals, they're multiple scary animals. Like they're just going to go at you, and even someone like Malik Beasley was able to sort of bully him driving to the basket. I can imagine like if Cade's on the floor, like he's pulling him up into pick and roll action every single time, trying to get that switch. That's food for Cade. So that is where I would still lean to Deuce McBride to get the bulk of my shooting, but some bench minutes, a couple minutes here and there with the starters, he's absolutely earned it. And Alex, to your point, even if they don't go to a 9-man rotation, I think he's made a case that he should maybe play over Campaign, who I've loved this year. I've sung Campaign's praises all year. He was obviously good in that meaningless Nets game, but outside of that, Campaign has not been good. Like he even that Cavs game when the Knicks were up by 10 early in the fourth quarter, he misses 4 straight shots at the start of the fourth quarter, including a wide open layup that kind of cost the Knicks the game as much as the last like few minutes where Garland cooked them cost the last few minutes. Like I have a feeling like there's a world where Campaign is in Tom Thibodeau's. I'm using this analogy again. A lot of dogs. He's in his doghouse a little bit, and maybe Shamet gets those minutes. If Tibbs only wants to play 8, I would tend to think he starts 9 and then maybe tightens the rotation as the series goes along when he sees who can hang. But right now, Shamet, I would have him out there over Campaign, even though maybe you just need Campaign just to do some point guard stuff.
Yeah, I would probably throw him out there over Campaign also. And I mean, they have shown, I don't know, maybe a slightly more faith in Deuce McBride handling the ball recently, and the fact that they have him just like fully coming off the bench now, and they can protect him a little bit by having him out there with like a Josh Hart or a Mikal Bridges who can handle the ball a little more, which to my point in the last segment, I feel like other guys handling the ball can only be good for the Knicks in this series if they do it the right way. Maybe that's the point where you can get Shamet in there over Payne if you don't really need that like playmaking off the bench to just kind of spell Brunson for the, I don't know, 8 to 10 minutes that he'll probably sit in any given playoff game. But yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. But I think that I've said this a bunch, and this is like another sort of anecdotal thing, but every single year in the playoffs, the Knicks have a certain moment where nobody can hit a 3.
Yes.
And it's happened each of the first 2 years of Brunson in the playoffs. Like it happened in the Heat series where they just had to continually feed Grimes over and over and over again.
Grimes shot like low 20s from 3, and they were so dramatically positive with him on the floor just because the Heat actually guarded him and had to guard him. And I think it's such a good point from you, because Detroit is going, even though the Knicks have dramatically better shooting now, they're going to treat the Knicks shooters not as badly as the Heat did, but they're going to dare the Knicks to make threes. And Shamet is someone who is not going to think about shooting a 3 right now.
And I mean, if Tibbs wants to be open-minded enough about it, there's a world where you could potentially just swap out Shamet for Hart in certain situations with the starters
100%.
and have maybe the most dangerous shooting lineup that like this side of the Celtics in the playoffs. Like if you throw him out there, now granted, you're going to lose a lot of what Josh Hart gives you otherwise with the playmaking and the rebounding and that sort of thing. But if you need to just score some freaking points for a couple minutes, like, and you feel good enough about the defense given the personnel out there on the other side, like you might be able to make something happen. I guess we won't know until we see if Tibbs is willing to utilize him or not. We've got a few days to stew on that. So we've got some more conversations coming your guys' way until then. But also, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the newsletter because you can, of course, win a bunch of gift cards and whatever for doing that. Let me pull up my copy to remind myself again how much it is. $2,500 to Best Buy if you sign up between now and the end of April. $300 Game Time gift card if you sign up between now and the end of April, or a $200 Fanatics gift card if you sign up between now and April 30th. So go sign up at lockedondaily.com. Go sign up for the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter. Help us out that way, and we might help you out with a new big screen TV or something. You get a pretty nice TV for $2,500 to watch the playoffs on. But anyway, until next time, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.